Good afternoon, Senator Morfeld.
Senator Walls, members of the Education Committee, for the record, my name is Adam Morfeld. That's ADAM, MOR, F as in Frank, ELD, representing the Fighting 46 Legislative District, here today to introduce LB87, a bill that would add mental health first aid training for school personnel to programs covered in part by lottery funds and administered by the Department of Education. The purpose of this program is to train teachers and other school personnel in mental health first aid. The program would be managed by the Department of Education and would provide evidence-based training that includes knowledge of how to recognize the signs and symptoms of mental illness and substance use disorders, including opioids, alcohol, information on local resources, and services to share with students and others who may be experiencing a mental health or substance use challenge. Techniques for safely de-escalating crisis situations, how to refer a student early on to prevent escalation and worsening symptoms, and finally reduce the stigma of mental illness and substance use and encourage students to ask for help. I worked with a group of students in Lincoln who were concerned about the safety and mental health issues. This bill came about in part because of those discussions and from an interim study hearing that I introduced to study the entire issue of school safety. In fact, one of those students testified this last time that we had this, and also brought in many other students that had compelling testimony on the importance of being able to identify mental health concerns at an early stage and address them. Many students and adults alike suffer from depression and mental illness. We do not do a good job of identifying and helping those students in a timely manner at some of the most important times to identify those issues in their lives. I would urge your support of LB87. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I will note to the committee that this is actually included in the lottery funds package that we adopted last year and that was introduced this year. I did not know that Senator Walls intended to reintroduce that in its entire form. And so this bill, quite frankly, is unnecessary because it's included. So happy to answer questions, but I didn't want to also go through the process of withdrawing it on the floor. I will note that we made several changes in the lottery funds. One, we stripped it down a little bit, made it a little bit more streamlined. So some of the language toward the end was language that was helping with other sections of the act and quite frankly are not relevant now that we have that bill. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? I see none. Thank you.
Yep.
Any proponents?
Chairwoman Walsh, senators of the Education Committee, my name is Steve Cerveny, S-T-E-V-E-C-E-R-V-E-N-Y. I'm a captain with the Omaha Police Department at 505 South 15th Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68102. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today and thank you for the valuable service that you provide. The Omaha Police Department supports LB87 as well as the bill that Senator Morfeld discussed that would encapsulate everything in LB87, because we recognize the importance of school staff members who interact with students on a daily basis to identify and understand children experiencing crisis and how to appropriately address and de-escalate those situations, as well as provide valuable resources that will help. We feel mental health first aid training would be very beneficial for our school resource officers who are working with kids in the Omaha schools every day. Currently, under Nebraska law, school resource officers are required to complete 20 hours of training focused on student rights, understanding special needs students, conflict de-escalation, ethics, teenage brain development, adolescent behavior, implicit bias training, diversity and cultural awareness, as well as trauma-informed response and violence prevention in schools. Most mental health training for our SROs has been geared toward understanding the teen brain and threat assessment or preventing school violence. Yearly mental health first aid training for school staff and resource officers would go a long way to provide understanding and meaningful assistance through de-escalation and resources for children who, through no fault of their own, are experiencing a traumatic behavioral health crisis. We are in full support of our school resource officers taking part in the mental health first aid training this bill provides on an annual basis. The Omaha Police Department also employs mental health professionals as co-responders who work hand in hand with our officers to assist and provide services for citizens experiencing mental health crises. Some of these mental health professionals are certified instructors and could possibly help with the implementation and instruction of the mental health first aid programs created by this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions from the committee?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Any other proponents? Any opponents? Anybody that would like to speak in the neutral position? Senator Morfeld, would you like to close? He waives closing. We did have 2 written testimony in lieu of person testimony. They were both proponents. One was Jason Hayes from NSEA and Cora Schrader from the Children's Hospital Med Center. No opponents, no neutral. We also had position letters. Proponents was the Board of Nebraska School Nurses Association, Mary Bonney from the School Social Work Association, Nebraska Child Health and Education Alliance, Dr. Daniel Ginn from the Nebraska Regional Council of American Academy for Children and Adolescent Psychiatry, and Andrea Phillips from the National Association of Social Workers, Nebraska chapter. We had no position letters written in the opponent or neutral. And that concludes our hearing on LB87 and our hearings for the afternoon.